So are you dressing up for anything this Halloween, or are you just keeping the
I bought a
cash?
bunch of paint and like latex and shit like that, and scar stuff, and just a bunch of stuff in case we wanted to have fun and get fruity with it. I even bought like some like bright color David Bowie type shit if we wanted to get all TikToky about it. Like,
That's our last show. Yeah. I'm familiar with that one.
I was there.
Yeah, it was me. It was me. So, as I would humbly do, as I humbly and respectfully do, I turn this over to you, Bob. I turn this over to you.
That's with much respect.
Yes, and I give you my penile unit on a platter if you want it. Just a fresh offering for the warlock of sweaty ball sacks. Huh?
Well, welcome to the Stiff Truth. I am Bob West, and I'm here with a man that many know of his greatness, his ability to twist the English language at his will.
Come on, lay it on me, baby.
A man that needs no introduction, so naturally I'm going to introduce him.
Woo, come on.
The one, the only, Scotty Big Cock Casanova.
Oh, hey.
How you doing, man?
Thanks for the warm welcome. I'm super stoked. It's Halloween, baby. Happy fucking Halloween. I'm so stoked, man. Couldn't be happier. Favorite, as we talked about before, my favorite holiday by far. Things are going well. Did a lot of ritualistic fun stuff with the fam yesterday. Carved 4 pumpkins. Mine looks partially retarded, but that's okay. It kind of models me, so it actually fits very well. What about you? You have any kind of pre-Halloween festivities you've been getting into so far, bud?
All week long. I love Halloween. I even made up a little song today.
A little ditty.
It was a little ditty. It was it's the most wonderful time of the year. And it sounds like Christmas. It was more about like there'll be vampire teeth glowing in monsters. So it was fun. It was fun. I had fun. Really though, I have always loved Halloween. I've always loved the spookiness. I've always loved the time of year. Fall's my favorite time of year. It's just not cold as balls yet, but I'm not sweating my ass off everywhere I go. So it's just that perfect thing. The leaves are all falling off and getting spooky. I just dig it. All week long we've been carving pumpkins. We've got half a dozen of them. So we got our last 2 we're going to carve today. Actually, that's not true. I think Jess bought 2 or 3 more yesterday. We have
hell yeah.
So it's just mad pumpkins. She's gonna make a pumpkin with an eyeball. So she's gonna cut the eye like out of it, the whole pumpkin, and then put another pumpkin inside of it that's painted white, and she's gonna paint the eyeball on that pumpkin so it looks like an eyeball in there. Anyway, she's getting crafty with it, and
I like that.
Got black cookies and orange and purple icing and sprinkles and muffins, and it's just a baking fiasco. We're all about Halloween here. This has been a build up now for a couple of weeks with the kids.
That sounds delicious, Bob.
And of course, like a horror movie almost every night.
Oh yeah, you got to do it 100%. What did I watch recently? Oh, you know what I watched recently? It's I don't know if I'd call it top tier or not. It's really entertaining. Jamie had never seen Jeepers Creepers, and I was like, oh, it's a good one, dude. You got to check that one out. So we watched Jeepers Creeper 1, and then the next night we watched part 2. Just a really, I think more than anything, like the antagonist whatever the fuck that thing is supposed to be in that movie. It's creepy as fuck looking, dude. Like super, super creepy.
Yeah, I caught the second half of Jeepers Creepers 2 the other day.
Oh, that's a
It
great
was
one.
just on.
You gotta love when douchey fucking high school football players and cheerleaders, start getting picked off one by one right after winning the big game. It was great.
Yeah, because most of us are like, they fucking deserve it.
They weren't gonna be anything anyways. Uncle Rico's.
I went to high school once. Don't worry, guys. You probably peaked. This is for the better.
You're all soak it up because this is it. This is it, guys.
Right. It's not going to get better anyway. Just go out on a high note and you'll be okay. Speaking of going out, I do have to give some a love out and RIP to Sean Connery, passed away today.
You know what? That was I will say one thing. I guess I'm not completely blindsided by a 90-year-old man, but the timing, you know what I mean? Of course, another thing to drop in this year, which keeps giving us just a roller coaster of exciting news. So yeah, that was a sad one. Honestly, I was thinking about it earlier too. Dare I say that he was even more popular, maybe more of a sex symbol as a senior than he was in his youth? You know what I mean? That which is really kind of unique about Sean Connery, I think. Yeah, you'll say that a lot of, especially women will say a lot of that, men in Hollywood age really well. Some of them, are the silver foxes, but I think he was the epitome. I think he was the one. I think he was it.
I think so too. I've heard plenty of women 20 years ago saying, I would bang the shit out of Sean Connery at 70. And I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, and what's crazy is
I hope that banter is going around when I'm 70.
Yeah, what's crazy though is some of those girls were like 21, 22
right,
saying that
exactly.
too. Like, you're like, okay, well,
as were we.
Yeah, I was like, what am I not missing here? That's why I started, dyeing my hair gray, speckled gray.
1 square inch at a time.
First you get the gray hair, then you get the khakis, then you get the chicks.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it probably doesn't come across in the video too much, but I've got the Dick Tracy classic mobster, like upper sideburn region starting to turn gray. So we'll see. Just as it's distinguished.
Oh, it is.
Like you just have a thing for grandpa.
But hey, you can play into that. You know what I mean? Nothing like yeah, nothing like role play night to bust out some fake teeth and wear Depends at the start.
Why don't you come over here and then shit on my lap? Okay, maybe not that old.
Well, yeah, that's a little creepy, but who knows? Who knows? Speaking about old and creepy, got the election. The really scary part of 2020 is coming up right past Halloween. You voted a little while ago, right?
And let's not play ourselves. All of it's terrifying.
It is. I mean, honestly, we talked about this offline a few days ago, I think, but I don't see a positive outcome. I don't see this ending well, regardless of what happens on Tuesday. And let's face it, too, we're probably not going to know who actually is confirmed the winner. And I'll put air quotes on that, and probably till Thanksgiving, with the way this shit's going. So,
you know what's funny? I was watching Scary Movie 3 last night.
Ooh, that's a dandy. That's a dandy.
Because after the horror, I needed a break, and the witching studies and all that. I needed a laugh. And I put on Scary Movie 3, and they go downstairs, and it's Anna Faris, right? So God, Anna Faris is with
the best. She's the best in those movies too.
Yeah, she's with the older brother from Malcolm in the Middle, that guy, right? And they run downstairs, and they're like, "Whoa, my gosh, it's the fire pit! This is where they were said to burn or cremate his body or whatever, right?" And they open it up, and they're like poking around in the fire pit, and then they see like whatever, and then whatever, and then they see Florida election ballots. And I was just like, wow, it never changes in Florida. That was 20 years ago. And they were talking about Florida just throwing away election ballots for the 2000 election with Gore and Bush. I was just like, wow, some history repeats itself. Some things never change. And goddamn fucking Florida.
Yeah, well, Florida takes the cake with a lot of things, and we love you Floridians. My brother's a Floridian technically, but what I will say is that's so funny that you mentioned that too, because I remember that was the first night. Here I am, 18 years old, First time I was able to vote was in the 2000 election with Gore and Bush.
What a
Watching the,
bitter taste.
I know, right? What a great start to this. But no, what was really interesting is, I mean, obviously I was alive. I was younger with previous elections, but that was the first to my recollection where it was like, okay, who won? And they're like, we don't know. We don't know. This guy, we don't know. And I remember there was definitely an unrest within me because I voted, for the first time. I was like, who the fuck won? And it's not been like that every year, but it gets a little bit more like that with every election. And I think this one's going to be just
Now, didn't
horrendous.
they never figure out who actually won Florida that year? Didn't Florida just pull the power of the delegate and just assume that Bush won and called it with their delegate power and not actually go off of their vote because they couldn't agree on a tally? I think
I
that's what
don't.
happened, dude.
Yeah, I don't.
It's been 20 years, but I have to double check that. But
yeah, I can't recall the exact specifics. All I know is that Jeb was the governor of Florida and his brother won, and that's all I really need to remember. I think to that one. So, but anyways, what I was going to bring up is I did it, Bob. This was my first year voting by mail-in ballot. I didn't actually mail it in though. We took it to like a little drop off for the ballots or what have you.
which is
So,
smart, considering like as it's getting closer and the way the post office has been.
oh, well, they wouldn't even accept mail anymore in Colorado. We got like a thing like last week saying, hey, no more mail in. If you got a mail in ballot, you have to go deliver it and drop it off at one of the at one of the voting stations or what have you. So but that was interesting. It was the first time I actually did the fill in on the mail in ballot and wasn't pressed almost wasn't I wasn't pressed for time. Let's just face it. When you go in person and you vote and you aren't able to research, the second district, Supreme Court justice of like the city or whatever, and all these things that ask you really don't know that much about what's going on besides the marquee big players. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I felt myself before a little rush and just kind of picking whatever after you get down to the really lower level people that aren't publicized or in the media at all. This time, I actually had time to do my due diligence and do research on every single person on the ballot by using Google, sitting at my computer about a week and a half ago. It was very refreshing because I actually got to have a more informed decision on every single person on the ballot. I don't feel you can do that when you do in-person voting.
Well, and I agree. And Jess said the same thing when she was going through hers, is because she pulled out her phone and she Google the candidates and see what they're about. It'll have a little bit more insight onto these candidates. Because once you start getting to like state congressional candidates and state senators and shit like that, you're not going to know these people, the treasurer, the county commissioner, shit like that. You're just not going to know really much about them. It's just a name on a ballot and a coin flip. So that is a really cool aspect of having the time to just sit there at your leisure and really dig into the voting and make a more informed vote. I wish they'd do it more. I really don't understand why there's not a fucking app. Like you can't just vote with your app at this point. It blows my mind.
There really should be. I don't think there's any reason why they shouldn't have that. I mean, they can monetize it, and isn't that like the point of everything now? So, I mean, get in there and do it. I mean, I don't know what the issue is,
everyone
Bob.
can pay $1 for the app if they want to vote that way, and you know that most people would pay that dollar just so they don't have to deal with it and they can do it on their phone, right? And then
Yeah,
that
100%.
money could be raised to like for the beefing up and the security of the election system. They can keep all that money in house. So
You know what?
just
It was interesting. Just sidebar here. Yeah, and again, I just think it was a lot more informed. But look, I did it a hybrid way. I didn't put it through the mail, well, because I waited too long to do it. You know what I mean? So I had to take it in and drop it off. But I minimized my perceived level of voter fraud that could be pulled on me by doing it that way. It transitioned now in less people's hands. Of course, I just drop it off and I have no idea where the fuck it goes now. So I think you could still argue that case. But I thought it was really interesting, man. I was watching, of course, turn on the Fox News very early this morning as I was drinking coffee. And it was so funny. I literally thought at first, I was like, are they doing a Halloween segment? But it was literally like last couple of days, rally cap, and just say, if Biden wins, this is what's going to happen. billions and billions of dollars are going to go, be gone. Everybody's going to be taxed the shit out of everything. The economy is going to crumble. They're going to shut down the oil, this, that, this, that. I was just watching. It's like, wow, this is super depressing. I've got to change the channel now. Interesting. The last ditch efforts of the right now. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not even going to make wagers here and try to guess, but it is interesting. I do find the election season disgusting and tantalizing at the same time.
Oh yeah, it's like a fucking car wreck where they block off the road and you finally get to drive by because you know that someone died, right? Because they blocked off the road, so you're like looking for the blood stain on the fucking road. It's like that. That's the election season, especially for United States Senate and presidential elections that happen.
It's tough, man.
Even the midterms are like that, for the political nerds like us.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a lot going on, a lot to vote for. I voted by mail. So this year's the first time I've ever voted by mail. I normally just pick a day and stop at the precinct. It's just this elementary school by the house at some point on voting day and knock it out and come home. That's kind of my routine, and that goes for local elections. Anything. Anytime I hear if there's a voting opportunity, I'm like, oh, I want to go put my 2 cents in, because some of it is I'm just nosy and I like to be in the know, and the other is I like to
100%.
know that I had my say in this, so that if it doesn't go that way, I can be like, well, I was never for that, or if it does go that way, be like, oh yeah, I helped that, right? So it's just that little piece of being involved. I like to vote. We got a little thing in the mail the other day about voter history, and it was just kind of our voter activity since 2012. And
yours personally or your area? Oh, really?
No. Me and Jessica by name, and it was from the state clerk or whatever. That was basically just like, you voted in these elections here since 2012, and you are an above average voter. Like, you vote in more than the average voter does in New Mexico. And I was just like, huh, because it seems like there's people that would vote more, but maybe not average. It's New Mexico.
Well, hey, yeah, you did it, bro. You did it. You passed. You did it. I'm
a C plus voter.
You're a C plus New Mexican like citizen. You're a stand up. Yeah, you're an above average New Mexican citizen. That's that's pretty nice. That had to be a heartwarming feeling.
Maybe even a B minus.
Let's not get out of hand here, but that sounds.
And it's good. Like, if you voted in like all kinds of crazy shit, do they give you like a high rating? Like, you're an excellent, far above average voter. Pat yourself on the back. Your dick just grew an inch when you read this.
Well, he's like, holy shit, look at that.
They do that. I mean, I didn't quite understand it, but I just thought it was interesting. Like, did we just really pay money to send these out to everyone in the state that's registered to vote and show them how amazing or how shitty they are?
I have a feeling, when I'm kind of going a little bit outside of the box here, but maybe it was a tactic to get people to vote more, or make sure that people are voting by reinforcing that, hey, you've been doing a good job here. Keep it up. Make sure you vote in this election. It's kind of important. You know what I mean? I don't know. Sounds like it could be feasible. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, it is strange to just kind of see the battle between the parties, and like the push for people to vote, and the casual, well, you can vote, but if you're in an urban area, maybe not. Maybe it's maybe it'd be better if you didn't. It's seriously, there's just these like subtle little pokes and prods from the parties about voting, and their stance is just weird when it comes to that. I really wish that everyone would just be incentivized to vote in some sort of way.
Out of pure, genuine concern and care for your country and the future of our children. That kind of just,
like just
sensibility.
Hey, I live here and I have the opportunity to have a say in what goes on. Where in half of the countries in the world, you don't at all, so, but, no one really cares. We're such spoiled Americans.
Yeah, I know. It's tough times, bro. But hey, at least I will say, I had a good experience with my mail-in ballot that I turned in person. That's all I can say. It was fun. Whatever. So people can smear on me. I think more people are probably mad because I wasted my vote. Whatever, right? See, the positive thing about how I vote is no matter what happens and what they end up doing, if it's a shitstorm, I can complain about everything. So there's that.
That's pretty beautiful right there.
Right?
It's almost like being Jewish, right? I'm going to complain about Christians and Muslims. Watch this shit.
And
Hold my beer.
Yeah, and if they come back at me, how dare those anti-Semites?
Right.
What are you saying? The Holocaust was fabricated? Get out of here, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Me too. Voting was okay. I did mail mine in, but I also voted like, I don't know, 2.5 weeks ago or something like that. Ours started on the 6th, so I think on the 7th I literally got mine in the mail the day after.
Good for you.
They sent it or something. So I filled it out. There's a holiday, Veterans Day. No. What was the 11th? Columbus Day. That's what it was. Veterans Day.
Excuse
next
me.
month on the 11th.
Indigenous Peoples Day. Okay, let's.
It's both. Both of them.
You know what's really interesting? It's almost like the banks just don't want to let it go because they get that day off, and like banker hours has always been a thing. You know, they get like every holiday off. But literally, I remember talking to people for work. I was like, I don't know about talking about mail and packages. I was like, yeah, I don't know if they do mail on Monday because it's Columbus Day. I was like, is that still a holiday that people like take for serious? You know, like it's serious. And I look it up. It's like a legit banking holiday still, but yet it's been like struck down in like half of the states in the country to be called Columbus Day, and it's Indigenous Peoples Day, which will be interesting. Do you think that's still going to be a bank holiday, or are they just holding on to Columbus Day because they're racist?
Well, it's a strange day, Scott. Columbus Day.
It really
is. I don't believe that Columbus ever actually set foot on America. I don't even think he ever quite made it to the mainland of North America. I think he ended up in the Caribbean and around Haiti-ish.
And he thought he was in India, too. He actually made a blunder on top of a blunder, and he's hailed as being like some kind of hero of modern America.
And really, he was just a businessman that was desperate for a come up. So he was trying to find a trade route that he could privatize and use and manipulate for his own and come up and get rich off of it. And instead, he enslaved a bunch of, indigenous folks in the Caribbean.
Yeah. Now, if you ask my family and a lot of traditional Italian people, Christopher Columbus is a saint. So we're going to end the conversation right there before I get angry.
Yeah. Good idea. I don't even know how we got off on Columbus, but
I honestly tried to shut it down as soon as I realized where we were. I was like, "What are we doing? What are we doing in Columbus Day fucking territory right now?" That was weeks ago. That was so weeks ago.
Anyway, well, maybe we didn't talk about it, but
I doubt we did.
Again, though, the voting was good. I was a little bit nervous about the mail-in vote just because I'd only done it, for the primary this year. It was the first time I'd done it, but then for the general election, I did want to. I wanted to track it down, and not necessarily because I think that there's voter fraud or anything happening. What I do think that is the post office has been really fucked with lately, this unnecessarily, it would seem, before an election, because it's like, well, we have some efficiencies, and it's like, really, you wouldn't wait until after the huge election that's coming to start like implementing your plan of efficiency, so you have 2 years before voters use that for voting livelihoods.
I don't know. And it's not just USPS. All the mail carriers are flaky right now. And it's funny too. Every time there's an issue with something, because I deal with this a lot with work. It's like the excuse is blanket. It's like, hey, why did that package get thrown across the fucking truck and explode over COVID? And it's like, you're okay, cool. It's like, no matter what, it's like, it's COVID, it's COVID, it's COVID, it's COVID. And you can't push on that. It's the same thing about pushing a guy for being Jewish. You know what I mean? You can't do it. So you got to stop right there at the COVID. You know what I mean? It's not fair, dude. They need to fucking.
Yeah, and it's funny too because Amazon will tell you, this package may be a week late, even though it's like prime shipping or whatever, because of COVID. So expect it a week late, but they're just covering their ass. It still gets here in like 3 days. And
yeah, they're. It's funny that they sometimes use FedEx. They sometimes use USPS when they have to delegate, but they've got their own drivers too. So it's interesting that, again, another private company that's maybe not as diluted as FedEx and UPS at this point right now can still seem to pull it off in a smoother fashion. Here I go again, just plugging free market. I'm gonna plug the free market real quick. USPS has always been a fucking shit show, if you ask me.
Yeah, they're building a distribution center in Albuquerque, and I saw an investment opportunity last year coming through for Amazon to buy a franchise Amazon delivery service to go buy a dozen trucks or whatever,
Hey,
and hire your
Bob.
people and start delivering for Amazon. So,
Wouldn't that be fun? Think about it, dude.
so all of you investors out there that want to throw down on some Amazon delivery, the market will be ripe here soon, and you can get in on the ground floor. I'm just saying.
Ripe, just like Bobby's butthole. My.
That's ripe, not tight.
You're all, don't get it twisted.
Just want to make sure everyone can understand our articulation.
that is ripe, not tight. Okay. You can bruise this thing, but you can't crack an egg on it right now.
I'm just kidding, mostly. Well,
I'll tell you what.
I did check in though. Our state, we have a follow-up on the mail. So after you vote by mail, you can actually go and track if they've received your ballot. And so mine and Jess's did get received. They have.
Oh, thank God.
So.
Thank God. They're not. That'd be funny too if the tracking came out so bottom of the Rio Grande, just where you wanted.
It's in the bottom of that mansion's fire pit with the Florida ballots. I knew it.
Thank you. Please leave a comment card. Let us know how we did.
Yeah.
Well, we could switch gears a little bit here if you want. We could switch gears. I think we're really going to be able to expand on. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more to talk about next week, post-election. Where are we going to be? Sure. Is it going to be like Mad Max land? Are we going to be doing? We might even have to do the show in person because they're going to set off an electronic pulse bomb and fucking knock everything out.
Right. We can talk about the yahoos that take their AKs to the damn polling places to stand outside and be intimidating. Because what the hell does that accomplish? Do you just stare them down on the way in? Like, the fuck are you doing here?
I talked to some people in DC about the election the other day. And they were saying that it's pretty crazy because you can already see the militia type people coming out to get prepared, the police too, but to get prepared for, again, whatever the outcome is of the election, there's going to be some faction of people that are going to be flipping out. You know what I mean? And they're going to be overboard, especially with the pent up 2020 aggression and anger and frustration that's going on top of that. So it's funny. It could be like Trump wins, Biden wins, and there's going to be an equal amount of people that are like, "Wah!" It's going to be nuts.
Well, we probably won't have to worry about that until mid-December.
Right.
So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll deal with the riots of 2021 based off of the presidential outcome of 2020.
That's right. That's right. The next crisis, we have a cure for COVID, but now there's just civil unrest everywhere because there was an election last year.
What happened? We decided to pick who was going to be the leader of the country. It was a shit show. I don't know what we were thinking.
We're just going to have our annual purge, that lame duck time period between election and inauguration. That's just going to be the new purge time every 4 years. It's just going to be the purge.
I'm okay with that. So,
buy your steel shutters. Get down. Flame retardant paint. You're going to be okay.
Did you say flame retarded?
Yes. The flames come up and they're all.
Oh my God.
You're like, what's wrong with that flame?
Got some fire coming at me. Yelling, Franks and beans.
Did that flame just turn sideways? Is that flame shaking?
Is that flame drooling? What's going on?
You guys are mean. Make fun of flames.
Yeah, we're literally. I was like, these guys are out of hand. They made fun of mentally handicapped kindling or fire starter. I don't know what they were doing. Whatever did they do to you? What did the flames do to you guys? Sons of bitches. Okay, I'm better. I'm back.
Back on track.
Tractor beam. Pull me right in, baby. So let's talk about some scary stuff. Let's talk about some spooky stuff, man. It's Halloween, baby. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying.
I do. I got a ghost story.
Oh, hold on. Let me get hold on. I just turned on my other monitor with that little the little fireplace thing or whatever. Got my marshmallows out. Okay, please proceed.
You got a cup of cocoa in your blankie?
Well, it's Kahlua, but yeah, and it's my well, it's Kahlua.
It's Scotch, but
Yeah,
yeah, I'm not even wearing shorts, but
yeah. I was like, yeah,
yeah.
that's what I was about to say too. I was like blanky, and that I was like, well, it's Kahlua, and it's my cock I'm holding. But yeah, go ahead.
So one time, I was in high school. I'd say I was probably I think I was a junior. Could have been 10th grade, 10th or 11th in there, 15, 16 years old.
Sure.
Um, and I just like, we'd moved into this house that my parents had bought, and it was just kind of a weird vibe house. It was kind of out in the country in Berlin, south of town, right?
I'm
Not very
already
many
scared.
neighbors, right?
I'm already scared.
Uh, Lots of meth labs and shit all over the
You're really
place.
you're really setting the scene. I like that.
No, it was just kind of out in the country
Sure.
on the south in Horales is the little town that has a post office, so it gets the moniker of town. Anyway, so we're down there and I'm leaving him, and my friend come to pick me up, and we're going to, I think it was a basketball game or something, high school game. And so we're going to leave, right? And I look in my sliding glass door in the front of my house, and I just see this like picture of a white face with like long white hair that went down to like kind of shoulder level, but no body, just a face, right? And
Ooh.
there, and I was just like, oh, that's fucking weird. And then I turned and I looked back again, and it was gone. It was just normal sliding glass window again. I was just like, oh, this fucking house, right? And so a couple few weeks later, I'd actually ditched school. Um,
You're all sorry, mom. Sorry, dad.
yeah, because my junior year, I was a big fan of not going to school, but maybe for like a class at the beginning, and then leave, and then maybe the last class of the day, and then right on into football practice. So gotta have
Yeah.
your priorities.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had ditched school, and I had gone home. It was around 1 in the afternoon, and I go into my bedroom, and I had a water bed, and I had a ceiling fan and like the globe light underneath it, right?
God bless the
And
90s. God bless
I
the
know,
90s,
I
by the way.
know.
God damn it. Anyways, go ahead. Sorry.
So on sitting on my bed was the globe light from the ceiling fan light
Mhm.
on my bed, broken, but with all of the broken pieces were sitting inside of the globe. So there was no pieces on the bed, on the comforter. It was just all the pieces were like neatly in the bowl where I could just pick it up and go throw it away. And
Hmm.
naturally, my parents like blamed me for that because I was a teenager. But really, I came home to it just like that. Right. And
Hmm.
what are you going to do? No, it was a fucking spirit, mom. Get the fuck out of here.
It's like, oh, you're up. Bob, give me the acid. You're like,
Right. Quit sprinkling shit on your weed. So, yeah, that was my little, like, I don't know, eerie kind of ghost story type things from my high school days. Very strange. On that note, I do believe in energy and unfinished business type stuff. I wouldn't equate spirits to any sort of religious aspect of anything,
hmm,
but I
hmm,
am big on energy. Humans, we do have a lot of energy inside of us,
hmm,
and
hmm.
I did sage the house 2 days ago.
Hmm.
Took some sage around
Good for
and
you.
gave it some kind words in all the corners of our rooms in our house, and because naturally I fell down the stairs, so
Well,
obviously that wasn't my fault, and it was a spirit with no good on its mind pushing me down the stairs, because that's the only way that can happen.
and you're absolutely right. There's no reason not to do some spiritual housekeeping here and there. You know what I mean? Because you never know if the spirits are getting a little bit stale in your house or evil. I think that's the same thing. So that's good. That's good for you to do. Good for you.
Well, not to mention, so my landlord lived here for 20 years. I think he said 17 years, right? Had a family in this house, whatever.
Did he kill
Moved
them
out.
all?
No, no, no. He moved
Oh,
out about 5 years ago or something like that, and bought a different house not too far away, and he's renting this one out. Well, he's
mhm.
had like a couple of tenants since then, and I think we're his third tenant. Um, but his son actually committed suicide a couple years ago.
In the house?
No, not in our house,
Oh,
but in his house. But this was his
interesting.
childhood house, So I just, ever since he told me that story, I've just been like, I'm just not going to take any chances because we'll be sitting in the living room and all of a sudden, like, the bread will just fall off the top of the fridge onto the floor. And we're like, we should sage. Right. So I just had a sneaking suspicion that just in case his boy is trying to come back to his childhood house, I sage occasionally to try to not let that happen. So anyway, I'm a little off. But
Well, nobody argues that, Bob, and that's why we love you. That's why we love you right there. But well, that's interesting, man, because I'll tell you what. Whether or not I believe in energy and spirits, I think I have to say that that definitely is something that is just a part of how I'm built in the sense that I've always felt that there's definitely some unworldly, out of worldly things going on that, again, like you said, which I really liked, really aren't hooked on or have anything to do with any certain religious kind of aspect or anything like that. Just spiritual and a land of the not of the living, right? I think definitely think there's a lot of energy beyond that. And it's almost again like an in-between. Like it's like a purgatory. I don't necessarily know if it's as supposed to be a suffering type place, like maybe the idea of like purgatory itself is, but there's definitely seems to be a realm of in between life and death. And I actually had a really interesting experience. This was probably about like 8 or 9 years ago. Which Jamie's probably going to correct me here, which should be a little embarrassing, but I believe it was the very first time that we went to go visit her dad. He lives in Knoxville, Tennessee, and the house is pretty old. And when we went there, of course, I've got the nerves of meeting the in-laws for the first time, kind of thing too, and just that whole first impression to kind of keep me on my toes, so to speak, with my anxiety. On top of that, they start talking about the house having like a friendly ghost, just like nothing malicious, just somebody that occasionally makes some noise. And Jamie's dad would, randomly tell to shut the fuck up because it was really too loud or all this stuff. And it concentrated in this area of the house and did some weird shit. Excuse me. So I'm hearing all this stuff and I'm like, yeah, of course. Yeah. Old fucking silly, folk tales about this and that, obviously a family thing. I'm just like that's cool. What have you? The very first night that we're there and we go to sleep, we're in that room. First of all, too, it's supposed to have like a lot of the concentration, but it's not an overwhelming story. So I'm not really freaked out about it. I'm not even thinking about it, to be honest with you. Right. And I'm a
not yet.
very, yeah, I'm a very light sleeper. This is just me in general. I've always been this way. Unless I'm completely knocked out cold, drunk, or high on something, which has been the case sometimes, I usually wake up at the drop of a dime, wind blowing, any kind of creaking, whatever. I don't get up and get paranoia about it, but it's hard for me to stay asleep if it's not like dead quiet or if I don't have some white noise going on. So that's not outside of the norm that I occasionally wake up and look around or what have you and then roll over. So it's about probably, I want to say 2 or 3 in the morning. And I have one of those things. I'm sitting there. This is kind of atypical too. I normally am one of those guys that's like a rotisserie chicken when I sleep. I'm constantly going on my side, my stomach, my back. I can't really get comfortable. Then I finally get my groove down, like Stella, get her groove, and then I'm sleeping. Anyways, I'm actually on my back, which is very rare for me. I open my eyes, I look up. There is literally probably like a 6 foot entity at the end of our bed, but it's very, very dark. I can almost see no detail at all. It's almost pixelated, kind of like looking. And again, I'm probably just kind of waking up. My eyes are a little bit tired. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? I've done this millions of times where when I actually like get up and focus, I'm like, oh, it's a jacket hanging on the back of the fucking, the chair, or
Right.
it's like, this or that. So I'm figuring it's something like that. So I'm starting to like try to focus and I'm just like, what the fuck? It's not going anywhere. And it's becoming more and more like apparent that something is standing there and it's a figure that looks like a human being. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And then literally I see this thing again, it's just mostly like really dark and black, kind of go across the edge of the bed. And my suitcase is on the other side of the bed at the foot of the bed. opened up, just like I didn't unpack it and pack any shit. And it literally, I see it kind of move down to where my suitcase is, and I almost can't see it above the bed line at the end of the bed, right? And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? What's going on? And I'm starting to freak out now because I'm just like kind of just seeing this thing move. And I don't know if I have paralysis with fear or if something is holding me, but I could not move at all. Like I couldn't even get up out of my complete like sleeping position. I was kind of frozen there, right? And again, I'm starting to get pretty freaked out here. I'm starting to sweat and shit too. Then the entity like looks like it goes down and checks out my suitcase. Like, who the fuck is this guy? You know what I mean? What's he doing here? Let's see what his shit is all about. Then comes back around to the edge of the bed again, and it gets taller and taller, and then literally starts coming towards me and getting lower and lower, almost to be eye level. And at this point, I'm like literally shaking. I probably got like pools of sweat like collecting behind me. It's super sexy, right? And then as like it almost gets right to me, I was able to finally like jump out of bed, and I started screaming. I was like, what the fuck is that shit? And Jamie woke up, and I told her what was going on. She laughed at me. It's like, and I was making fun before, like, yeah, fucking ghosts, whatever, it's bullshit, a bunch of bullshit. But that's what happened. And then I calmed down, went back to bed, thing was done. But I literally, after thinking about it the next day, I was like, it's not a malicious, not a mean ghost. Probably just like, who the fuck is this new guy dating this guy's daughter? I gotta check him out. I gotta see what he's all about. Smell his underwear. Okay, not too bad. A couple skid marks. Okay, now I'm out of here. I freaked him out. Moving on. But after that day, I'm definitely more of a believer, to say that, because I still can't explain it, and it wasn't like I was asleep either. So interesting stuff.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So that was the first time I've heard that story. So I was on the side with my Coco, along with all the Stiffies, listening to that.
Good one.
Very fascinating story.
Yeah.
Very creepy. Kind of similar to that. Daring lost his grandpa on Jessica's dad's side, right? So he passed, battling COPD for years. Finally passed, right? I want to say it was about 5 years ago, maybe 6. But we hadn't moved into this house. So it was about 4 or 5 years ago. So Daring was around 9 or 10. And Daring came out one morning, and he was just like, "Hey, by the way, Grandpa came to see me last night." And we're like, "What do you mean?" And he's just like, "Yeah, I woke up and Grandpa was standing at the end of my bed, just like watching me." And Jess was like, "Well, was it scary?" And he's like, "No, it wasn't scary at all. It was Grandpa." And it just kind of went on like nonchalant. Like, if that had happened to me at my age, even, and I don't give a shit who it is, I'm not going to react that way. Just not.
You're all, hey, what's up, deceased person I used to know? I'll go back to sleep now. Yeah.
Right. But after hearing your story, where like you didn't want to move or couldn't move, maybe he had an overwhelming sense of it's okay. This is okay. So I don't know. I can't judge because I wasn't ever in that situation. But again, there's too many tales and stories out there with the I don't want to say the afterlife. I want to say the after death.
Maybe right? like the supernatural.
Something like in that. Between the after death and before the afterlife there, depending on what you're into there. There's that in between there that I will call, for argument's sake, the after death right now. So maybe there's something to that little after death time. More people can decide on what they're going to do, or their energy can decide. Am I going to hang out here? Do I need to try to influence something that's important, or
is something left unsaid or unsettled? Yeah, you know what I mean. Do I need to help resolve something from my life unjustly that happened, or something like that?
Or at least give it a good go. Or maybe I'm concerned about a loved one. Maybe I can go try to influence them in the right direction for a while before I go.
Or I'm just really, really bitter and pissed off about being dead, and I'm going to go scare people. I'm sure there's
you motherfuckers that are alive. I'm going to scare you all. I don't want to hurt you. I just want you to wet your bed.
Yeah. There's definitely that. No, it is interesting, man. It's it's a fun thing to think about. There's so much to it, and it kind of I would equate it to this too. It makes me have that kind of vastness of where my thoughts could go, similar to like out of body and psychedelic experiences. You know what I mean? When I start thinking about the supernatural realm or whatever you want to call it, right? And then also the interdimensional like psychedelic realm and shit like that. There's a lot of similarities where my mind can take me to when I start thinking there, because it's so many unknowns, and so many things could be. You know what I mean? So fun stuff.
Yeah, I just
Awesome
keep
stuff.
going back to the DMT show.
You're right. Yeah.
And just kind of tying things together there. Like maybe there's something to that. Plenty of people say that there is, and I am definitely not one to discredit that and be so arrogant as to say that I'm the only one that knows the answers, because I don't know shit, and I'm the first to admit that.
Yeah, and do you see how we do that? That's how me and Bob do it here at the Stiff Truth. We tie ghost stories in the supernatural realm back to methyltryptamine somehow, which is good. I like that.
We got to tie our shows together. We got to keep things relevant and keep things connected. There's a reason that we do things.
There's a nice
It's
net.
all this,
It's like a
what a
spider web.
fantastic web we weave. You really know what we're talking about. You have to go back like 10 episodes.
Yeah. You actually have to listen to the show. But you know what? I'm telling you, man, I'm getting pretty worked up here. I'm getting pretty excited. Some good stories, some good back and forth.
Coffee, man.
You know where I was going, sir. We've been doing this for a few times now. I think it is about time to go get us a nice Halloween type stiff cocktail. What do you think, babe? Huh?
Yeah. Let's go get down.
All right.
Hi. Oh, I'm so excited. Bob's almost here. There he is. I can relax now. Hey, how are you?
I'm just dying with excitement over here. I'm just dying. But that's how I do.
Is that a spicy bloody brew you got there, or what's going on?
Right here, baby. Look at that. Huh?
Wow. Hold on.
Get it up there.
Ooh.
Whoa.
The
Very
mug
nice.
and everything. Oh yeah. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers to your bloody tits.
I like it. Of course, I'm a big fan of a red beer, so
and that's really what it is. I mean, it's a red beer with a kick, right? It's a red beer Boilermaker, pretty much. Throw a shot of vodka in this bad beer, make it a man beer, a man
it's
red
a hybrid.
Beer. Yeah,
it's a Bloody Mary,
kind of like a
red beer,
kind of like Tiger Woods.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had to throw a quick racial joke in there for fun.
Those are the best ones, Scott. Those are the best ones.
They never get old.
A couple things funnier than racism. Okay.
Oh, hold on. Let me guess. No, I can't do it. I can't do
Domestic violence.
And I was. What else? Let's see. Okay. We got rape, domestic violence. Those are hysterical too. And then
I don't know, general pedophilia, or maybe more leaning towards a Catholic priest.
Something of that nature, or mental handicap. Those are good too. Those are always good.
If you start bringing in, the word retarded in your conversation, I don't know. Like, for instance, we're retarded.
Yeah, this is true. So if you can tie together that somebody raped somebody retarded style, this is how we do our Halloween show. God damn it!
But it's okay if they were actually married to them while getting beaten.
Then it's not even worthy of the.
It's all good.
It's not even worthy of the 6 a.m. Saturday news, if that's the case. Jesus, come on.
Oh man, this is what happens when we do our show in the afternoon.
It's true. I mean,
in the morning we wouldn't be this sprightly.
No,
we'd still have like one eye open, like, what the fuck's going on? Where's our stiff truth?
Exactly. Still thinking whether or not I should take a shit before the show or after the show. You never know. It's still the morning.
Are we drinking yet? What time is it?
Of course we are. course
Do
we
I
have
just put
something.
booze in my coffee? He put booze in his coffee, guys.
That might be another way to start the show off too for an early AM show, but having straight up
Just
Kahlua.
Irish coffees,
Yeah,
just straight
Irish.
up, just it's whiskey with like a little bit of coffee syrup and like a shot of espresso.
The shot of espresso is just so I can keep my eyes straight and stop shaking, stop wobbling
So
my head.
for those that want to know, we're drinking something called a Bloody Brew. It can be found in the 10th edition of the Bartender's Handbook, right? So
pick yourself up one on from Amazon.
yeah, they're fantastic. And it's basically, Bloody Mary, right? You start your pitcher off, your cup off with some ice. You're throwing in a shot of vodka. You're putting in your tomato juice, and then next thing you know, you're cutting that short and you're filling it up with a beer, salting, peppering, getting down.
I didn't do
I
any
am
with ice.
curious.
No ice in mine.
See, I had to go with ice, just because my tomato juice wasn't cold. So
Mine wasn't either. Good
it
call
was
on
out in
that.
the bar, yeah. So I was just
The
like,
beer was
well.
the beer was cold enough though, so it's again like we talked about before with my first beer. It's doable. It's doable.
It's colder than warm. Gotcha.
Yep.
So I am curious as to what kind of beer to throw in there.
Stella Artois.
Okay, nice. I went a little bit darker. I went with an original Sammy Adams.
Nice work, sir. Well, kudos to you and here's my thing. When I have a red beer, because when we talked about this, we read it. We're like, okay, it's a red beer with a shot of vodka in it. Cool, awesome. I love red beers. Used to have them all the time.
There.
I honestly used to really enjoy red beers with Tecate, like the can, like tall boys at Tecate. Like drink a little bit. You drink a little bit out of that, and I used to use what is it?
Clamato?
Yes.
I was just going to ask you if you were a fan. I like Clamato too.
Most people I know can't stand it, but my stepmom got me into it a long time ago, and I was like, this shit is the bee's knees, hands down. Best thing for red beers is Clamato. And I usually went with like a tall boy of Tecate or a tall boy of, honestly, Coors Light. I know that sounds bad, but I like a light beer with my red beer for some reason. It's always been the way I go. It's the way I like to
play. It's not a bad way. In fact, after having made it just according to recipe, now the next one I'm going to make, because I'm going to have another one of these here in a minute, but the next one I'm going to make, I'm going to throw in some Tapatio in it. Just because I don't have any habanero Tabasco, because that seems like it would be perfect for it. But I am going to go with some Tapatio and spice it up a little bit more. I was unsure with the thickness and how it was actually going to taste, so I just left it with the recipe.
Honestly, I went with the spicy hot to kind of like not need to get like the peppered vodka. It did me right. It did me right. It's just that low level of like peppery spice that you're looking for there. But anyways, fantastic.
I topped mine with like fresh cracked black pepper.
Oh, look at you.
Get in there. A freshy pepper. We got some freshy pepper in there. So yeah, that was good. So now that we're properly boozed up, and it is 1:12 in the afternoon, so we're actually not AM drinking on this show. I mean, we never would do that.
No, we don't.
But I do have a couple of backup brews up here.
Oh, good for you.
I can keep this thing going. But I think we spent a little bit more time bloviating on our first half of the show, so we probably need to get right into it with today's little Halloween dark mysteries and mystical conversation here. Do you want to start us off with what we're getting into?
Yeah, I mean it's a broad.
What are you calling a broad?
I guess that has a double meaning now, but it's a broad subject, and no, most of them are broads, if you say, but female. There's definitely a lot of male ones, but we're going to talk about witches today, and this is definitely just a Pandora's box of so much shit. But I think we're really going to talk about just what's the scoop here? Where'd this all come from? Are there real witches? Are there fake witches? What's going on with them? How did this all come about? How did this perpetuate? What happened here? And then I guess kind of really just the mystique behind witchcraft and warlocks and witches in general. One thing I'll say just to start this off, Bob, is doing some research and already kind of understanding this. People that are looking to be malicious and usually have some kind of supernatural kind of powers or assumed powers. These stories of witchcraft, witches, warlocks, shamans, whatever you want to call them, voodoo doctors, whatever they are, they're in every single cultured and uncultured, meaning barbaric society from the beginning of time. I'll just go ahead and start right there.
Yeah, since humans were able to like transcribe,
They were talking about some evil shit.
language, there was witches. I found that fascinating that witches went all the way back literally to the Mesopotamian culture, which isn't the beginning of humankind. It's the beginning of recorded history, because that's when we literally started recording history, right?
That's when we had the tools to do so, like language
Right.
and how to write.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, and that goes back far enough to prove our point that it's innate in every human civilization, is the idea that there is some people out there you need to stay away from because they're looking to do bad shit to you and yours, and the only reason you could think that they're doing that is because they're pure evil or they're working with the devil or whatever you want to say, right?
You know what's interesting about witches is like I can think of times where, back in the Greek Roman times, where witches were kind of revered and were shown a certain level of respect. You wanted to go to the quote, the oracle, right, to get a handle on making a decision or getting advice. And everyone kind of left them alone. No one was coming with pitchforks and torches after these, quote, witches or these mystics. And so throughout history, a lot of the witches have had the ability to perhaps do something negative to someone, but a lot of them have been respected for their power in general in a way that could be more positive, which is
Agree.
very interesting.
I love that you touched on that too, because that makes total sense to me. And I'm sure if you think about it, it makes total sense to you as well. In the sense of, I said sense way too many times there in like a you know a small period of time. But what again when you go back
That
to the
helped when you said it a couple more times.
yeah, right. But when you go with the major differences that we highlighted shows ago for people to recall or go back to the catalog, please go to YouTube, go into Spotify right now and check out the older shows. But when we talked about religion, right, and the difference between monotheism and polytheism, right, that makes a lot of sense that witches and people like wizards and sorcerers were more revered and respected during a time when it wasn't, you need to believe in one thing or else you're fucking shit fucked. You know what I mean? And that's a polite way of saying you're pure evil if you're against my one God. So when you have many a God, you can go to that person as a a benevolent person that's actually can do good stuff. Yeah, maybe they have the capacity to do bad stuff, but that's not necessarily their point, and that's not how they're polarized in the eyes of their society. Now, you flip it to again when it's just one guy or the highway kind of thing, or one entity or whatever. Almost in all of those societies, witches have been deemed as evil because they are against that one entity. So that makes sense to me. It does. It sucks, but it makes sense to me. Kind of
Yeah.
unfolds the rest of the story of witchcraft if you go to the monotheistic side of it.
Right. And is it like a crazy coincidence that um at the point of Christianity and around the 1600 mark is when witches were considered super evil at that point? Because up until that point, they necessarily weren't. Like pre 1400, witches were just part of culture, depending on where you're at. They were just so in the north, they were in northern Europe. They were called gypsies, right? I mean, so there were spiritual beings. There was pagan healers and things. Again,
Sure.
in northern Europe, they were called different things. But it wasn't until like we started invoking God to give it a counter to what I want you to believe as good. So anything other than what is good must inherently be bad.
Or or to take it a step farther with ignorance of that time period, if it's not even perceived as good, if it's something that you just can't explain or comprehend or you don't have the science for yet, or you're off put by it because it's new and different, it is also by definition evil. You know what I mean? And in league with Satan, you're like, oh, I don't understand that. So it's obviously evil and you're a witch. You need to die. Yeah, no, that's the way it seemed. That was the common theme, Bobby, between, I want to say, the 1400s to, dare I say, around the 1700s. So I think, was that the hot spot? Those three areas right there.
Yeah, the late 1600s was Salem, and
Oh,
that's kind of where it ended. Interesting thing about the witches, because the 1600s was really the emphasis on let's kill hundreds or thousands of people and just say that they're witches so that we can feel better about our society like we're doing something that's beneficial when
Yeah, and
really
I
we're just doing nothing but sacrificing old and
I
poor people.
I think their rhetoric probably from a just a very positive, optimistic standpoint in their shoes, if they wrote the story, was we're cleansing the nation, we're cleansing the community, whatever, right? We're doing God's work, Bob. That's what we're doing.
Of course, we're going to torture these women until they can't take it anymore, and they'll tell us anything that we want to hear so that we stop torturing them.
Isn't that interesting though? How that happens? How's like put yourself in their shoes too. This is one of the most interesting things, guys. If you don't know this, um, pick up a book or just turn on the TV and watch something when it talks about the history of witchcraft, because it is very interesting that there's nobody that willingly came and said, yeah, look, I'm a witch. I do this maliciously. I wanted to hurt this person. That didn't happen. I mean, it just didn't happen. That's why at first it was like not, I guess, not a big thing. But once you literally torture somebody like senseless until they say something that makes you stop torturing them. Yeah, it's weird how that usually turns out to be what you want to hear, and you won't take anything else as truth. You know what I mean? So,
I
good
mean,
tactic.
you could tell someone that they have a sexual attraction to goats, and they're going to be like, "No, that's weird,"
And
right?
then they're
But
going
then
to beat the shit out of you. Yeah.
torture them, and sleep deprive them for 6 months, and they'll be putting that goat against the cliff so it puts back harder. I mean,
Yeah. I told you. I told you.
thing.
I told you. I'm a goat fucker. I told you I was. Like, all right. All right.
Because there comes a
Now,
point in time where death is the release of then torture. I mean, and then even when they're not being tortured, especially in the 1600s, the cell that they were in, they were shackled to a stone floor, and that was it. You sleep, you shit, you piss on yourself, on your shackle. I mean, it is ridiculous conditions. So yeah, who would want to live that life? I think most of us, after several months of that on end, would be begging for death instead of this new normal of torture and sleep deprivation and living in my own squalor. Yeah, I could see that. I could call it a day after a good 4 months of that.
yeah. Well, it's tough though, because you think about that. It's very sad in the sense that I'm kind of just looking at some stuff now. There's tales we already talked about. There's tales from witches that dedicate their own section of the Wikipedia page about witchcraft from it looks like every country in the world, or
Yeah,
everything, which is really upsetting to me, because what happened, we'll just call it from the late 1400s to the late 1600s. I want to say like that epicenter of the witch the witch craze, pretty much, in European Judeo-Christian, a kind of area. It's sad because we don't really know if there was any of them there. We don't really know, right? We really don't know. In the sense that, were anybody that was claimed to be a witch, did anybody do a slice of anything wrong? Or was it literally just a bunch of people that were beaten senseless to out themselves and their neighbors because maybe they didn't like them, or they, that one chick, fucked my husband or something like that. I don't know, but it really kind of, it taints the whole thing, and it really just is a huge massacre. I mean, how many people died in Scotland, let's say, in the 1600s before the Salem witch trials? Jesus.
hundreds of people died, and thousands of people were tortured for months on end
Hmm.
until they couldn't prove in a court that they were guilty, and then they were let go. So, I mean, typically from what I've seen, it was around 30 to 50% of those captured and accused of witchcraft. Um, were innocent and found innocent, and the other people, never confessed. And the thing about it is, it was always based on a confession, no matter what.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it was not the evidence. Because that was
No,
few and far between. In fact, usually it was all circumstantial hearsay. You know what I mean? So that's interesting too. A lot of people, like family members would bring other family members that were maybe just showing dementia. That person's a witch. It was usually elderly women too, which was sad. Don't get me wrong. Some countries like weighed heavily on singling out men for being witches, warlocks, whatever you want to call them, right? But overwhelmingly, it was older women. And they would do, you probably saw this too, but they would do strange things. It's like, hey, this is an elderly woman. Not to say anything wrong about elderly women, but as you age as a woman and you start getting to the point of elderly, which was a lot younger 500 years ago than it was today. Like you started probably getting old at like 40, like old looking, but you would get like age spots from the sun, this and that, what have you, and they would literally just roll these older ladies around and be like, "There's got to be something. See, there's a mark of Satan on her. She's in league with the devil. She's a witch."
Right.
And like it was nuts. You're like, "What are you doing?" Like talk about and what was the point of this? Was there like something that the rest of these men and these people had to get from this persecution, or was it just straight fear and mania?
Well, so I think we should probably talk about England and
I don't
talk
want to
about.
though. The British are so shitty.
We'll talk about the
Right.
Matthew Hopkins, which
He's
was the great 26-year-old witch hunter, right?
he's a pimp.
So
He's a pimp. First of all, I love Hopkins. MH, what's up, baby? How you doing?
yeah,
You're like, yeah.
he. So first off, there's a case of witchcraft accused that was really skeptical of how there's this one case in northeastern England or whatever about this handmaiden, this employee of
This
this
is
man.
mainly like the Scots, right? That are like a lot of this concentrations in Scotland. I want to say, right?
I can't remember off the top
Okay.
of my head anymore. Um, so this woman
I
got
love
accused
that.
of witchcraft, right?
You're just like, no more. I cannot remember shit off the top of my head anymore. It sounded
Right.
very, very, very finite. That was great. I loved it. Sorry.
So this maiden, this employee of this man, right? Was going out at night. She's probably gonna go get banged or something, right?
Fuck yeah.
And right. And she wasn't married or whatever. And then eventually he's just like, "Oh, you went sneaking off at night." Sounds of a jealous person knowing that she's probably getting her head plowed into a hay bale. And then
Easy, Bob. I'm getting a chub over here.
so at that point, he accused her of witchcraft and whatever because she'd actually been healing him. I guess he was sick and she used herbs or something. And he said, "You have this," basically just pulling some bullshit, right? And they tortured this girl until she finally confessed. But it was like pretty crazy torture that they were doing on this woman before she finally said, "I'll say whatever you want." But the interesting thing there was then she outed like 30 other people.
Yeah,
And
what's that
these
all
girls
about?
too, right?
Yeah,
So
Jesus.
I don't know because it's not like maybe in a hope for leniency, but they just killed them all anyway.
Yeah, and you could probably say that's a good point because I was scratching my head for a minute, Bob. I was like, why would and there was multiple women that did this too. Like they got they wouldn't say a
It was this
fucking
huge
thing.
chain.
Yeah, they wouldn't say a fucking thing. And then, after shit, they're tortured and beaten for months on end. Not only do they fess up this whole fake story about them, but they out all these other people in town. It's like, and I think it's almost like maybe they thought in their frail sense, of a mind when you're like getting tortured. I'm sure you're not thinking like where you're not SAT ready. You know what I mean? Is all I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
It's not like you're like, all right, cool. I'm on fire in all cylinders right now. So you're probably not able to think properly, and maybe you think by giving out a lot of other people, they'll stop hurting me and there won't be the bullseye on me. There'll be other people to worry about and I can crawl into a corner and recuperate or something. You know what I mean? I have no idea. That can be the only thing that I can think of, dude. So, but yeah, crazy shit.
Well, so that instance, I believe it was in like 1602, 1603, early 1600s.
What a great
that
year.
led to like the witch trials of wherever they were, right in Scotland, I think. And then all of a sudden, here comes the guy that's going to try all of these is again Matthew Hopkins. Right
now, unpack him a little bit. Tell us a little bit about him. Tell us a little bit about him because I think he's an interesting character.
So Matthew Hopkins was someone in his mid-20s.
Yeah.
Right. That was a nobody.
Yeah.
Right?
I think
I don't even know how he got roped into prosecuting these witches at 25 or 26 or whatever. But he did, and he became famous, and then he got paid like £2 per conviction and execution. So £2 per person when you have 14, so that's £28. That's a lot of money. A lot of money. I mean, that's modern day, like, 20 G's a person or something like that. That's
Sure.
crazy money. And so he's just like, well, that's handy. Maybe we can get more money, and right. And I think it was all money motivated because of his age. I think very little of it had to do with prestige and power. I think it was mostly money, and then the fear off of his ambition to get that money is what led to his reputation. Right. I that's my personal thought. So all in all, there was about a couple thousand people
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
accused of witchcraft within a couple of years time in Scotland, and it was like a fucking epidemic over there. And then about a third of those people got sentenced to death with zero evidence. But then again, that's mad money for him. And the interesting thing about it all is it's all fun and good when we're getting rid of the undesirables in our community, and we found a clever way to do this. But then when the townspeople realized that their taxes started going up because these executions and trials were fucking expensive, it's funny how quickly it stopped.
Well, that is the silver lining lesson out of this whole episode. Honestly, it's like, hey,
Oh,
watch out
that's
what
just
happens.
expensive? Whoa, 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 whoa. I got to
Oh,
pay for that?
I can't get behind that shit anymore. I can't do it.
Murdering people for profit is one thing. But when I have to pay higher taxes, I got to call bullshit.
The gloves are off. The gloves are off right there. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Shut that shit down. But you brought up a very good point though with just him in general being young and being motivated by money. I mean, I think that was it. You know what I mean? I think the other reason he was very motivated by money, and you had mentioned it before, is he came from nothing too. He was a nobody. He wasn't a noble. He wasn't an aristocratic type person. He wasn't somebody that should have held any type of legitimate place of power in society. So there was probably him a knowing of that and him not wanting to go back down to that. So it was a desperate grab to make a lot of money, and it worked. It worked for him. But yeah, you can say what you will, but you also bring in some other people in the fold here too, right? You bring in good old King James, right?
Oh, King James.
You
You know
know,
what? He meant well.
he did. I think he did when he wrote his little demonology book, right? And then what was written before? This was in 1490 something, right? What was it called?
Hmm.
You
I
said it.
do have that. I do have that.
The Witch's Hammer.
Malleus Maleficarum.
Yeah, and what does that
What you talking
stand
about?
for? The wit, yeah, the something hammer of the witch or something, or hammering. What is that? It means something like that, right?
The Hammer of Witches.
Yeah, the hammer of
The book,
witches.
usually translated as The Hammer of Witches, written in 1486,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
was essentially a guide on how to identify, hunt, and interrogate witches.
Now this thing was used for I want to say 2 or 3 centuries as like the bartender black book of killing witches, right, and identifying witches. So very interesting that not only did that happen, but you give it a little bit later with King James, basically putting the fucking just the icing on the cake with legitimizing not only that witchcraft and witches are real, which scares the masses even more. Let's face it, right? When it's all just like little stories in town about, hey, don't go fuck with Mrs. Whatever when she fucking queefs, dust comes out in spider webs, and also she can fucking kill you. It wasn't those kind of stories anymore, but it was actually legitimately witches are real. This is fucking hardcore. This is scary. Oh, but here's my playbook on how to fucking sniff them out and snuff them out because I'm going to need to. You know what I mean? So when that happened with demonology, that this is when this kind of exploded. That was like a wildfire, and that's why you had mentioned earlier. This was a witchcraft, a bad witch, black witches, whatever you want to call them. It was a witch epidemic of the early Enlightenment era, or so to speak.
Well,
Right?
and honestly, there was no such thing as a good witch under
Not under the
this
Christian
in
belief.
these books. Yeah,
Yeah,
not under
yeah.
because any sort of witch had made a deal with the devil.
Oh yeah, 100%. No, this was cut and dry, no gray area. You're absolutely right. I apologize. I was doing a little bit more research on real witches,
Right,
and
right, for sure.
yeah. But no,
And it's oh, go ahead.
no. I was just saying, and you're right. Boom, I'm done.
It's interesting about King James is I never really paid attention. I probably had read this once, but um, King James was King of Scotland when all this witch trials were going on there, and he had wrote that book. Right. Interesting thing though is kind of what stoked the fire of witchcraft throughout the English speaking world at this point was Queen Elizabeth dies, and she had no heirs. So
Mm-hmm.
King James in Scotland claimed the throne, moved to London, and became the King of England, right? And so now they had a Scottish-born king, right? And so he had written this book, and his reputation preceded himself. So even though he wasn't all about necessarily going out and scouring door to door and looking for witches, he did have strong feelings about it, and he did believe in it. He did literally wrote the book on it, right? And so then, like wildfire, leadership starts at the top, right? So because he believed this, it instantly spread in England, right? And then just 40 years after his death, ish, then that's when the Salem witch trials happen in New England, right? So uh, this all ties back into one fucking 25-year-old kid wanting to make some money and a name for himself. Back to damn Matthew Hopkins, little prick, literally started this match that started a forest fire that killed, hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of people throughout Europe and North America. Very, very crazy. I never knew that it all really stemmed from just basically one incident of this housemaid that didn't want to fuck her master.
Yeah. Which is a damn crime in itself. But no, you're
Right, at
100%.
least throw him a bone. Come
Nah,
on.
come on. Give the guy. He's
Don't let him throw
overweight.
you one. You know what
He's
I mean?
sweaty. You know what I mean? All the time. I know he smells like onions, but come on, get in there. But no, you're absolutely right. And it is crazy to think that. And I was just thinking beyond old MH, which I love me some Hopkins. I just like that he walked with a cane in his 20s. I thought that was great because he didn't need a cane, but he just really wanted to carry himself as that much of a badass that he had a
Yeah,
cane.
there was only one cane I dealt with in my 20s, and it was not a walking cane.
Bow down, bow down, cocaine. There we go. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. But it was also interesting too how from a religious standpoint, how influential King James was. You have the King James version of the Bible as the mainstay flagship version of the Bible to this day. Same King James, I believe, right? So not only did he come down with this,
he was that guy.
yeah, not only did he come down with the decree and basically lay down the law of the land about witchcraft and how you handle this and legitimize all that, he also said this is also how you fucking study Jesus and God right here. You have to do it with my text. I am now the alpha omega of reality of the living world. It's crazy. Guy was pretty hardcore, if you ask me. And it's funny that he was also not technically English; he was Scottish, which I think you're English both ways, but they definitely want to separate themselves. So
yeah, definitely was 1611, which was when he was running England. So yeah, same homie.
Yeah,
and by all accounts, a good king, an educated king, a scholar, liked to learn, liked to be in the know on things, was not a piece of shit tyrant. Tried, like I said, like he really, I think, was really trying to do good for his people and do the right thing here. It just kind of got away from him. And the 1600s and Christianity, man.
that's all you really got to
Pretty
say.
brutal.
You're all, hey, here, you get to go anywhere, and you start laying out 1600s Christianity. You're like, whoa, pump the brakes, dude, pump the brakes. I'm not going there.
This is the same time period when we had like pilgrims hitting the shores of New England, right? So fleeing this religious time period of England.
Well, and I'll tell you to pivot a little bit here because there's so much to say about this if we really want to. But what I want to talk about a little bit here is just like where's witchcraft right now, in general. And I think it's a lot more legitimized and call it what you will. I'm going to use the lack of a better term, wholesome. You got Wiccan, Wiccan witches, white witches, basically. You've got a whole and they don't have to practice in silence anymore beyond the 50s and 60s when a lot of these covens were really popular. Now being in Wiccan witch, what have you, is totally legitimate, not scary at all, nothing malicious or evil about it. But then you also have people, and we remember this. Remember from our studying on vampires too. There is also satanic witches. These not necessarily are evil people either. I know it sounds really horrible, but the Church of Satan founder, Anton LaVey, both of his daughters are satanic witches and ran the Church of Satan in California, I believe in San Francisco, since like the 1970s or 80s till now. There is like literally the Satanic Witch is the handbook for the Satanic Bible. It's a real thing. You do make a blood pact with Satan to get powers that you wouldn't have otherwise. So very different from Wicca and white witches and benevolent type witches, but none the same or none really different though. If you research Satanism in general, it's not exactly very malicious and mean either. It's more of an anti-God kind of thing versus an anti-moral standpoint. So there's that.
In fact, the commandments in the Satanic Bible really reference the moral compass. You know, lots of moral issues when you scroll down the Bible there. So yeah, it's a good thing to point out. I also think that modern day witches have more circled back to shamanism, paganism, back to the old Northern European druid pagan ways of witchcraft, which are neither good nor evil. They just are, right? So some things are good, some things are bad, but there was never that moniker of a good witch or a bad witch, just someone that practices and the craft. So so I see a lot more of that when I look at, even social media. You can see a strong following of Wiccan. I did see that covens, because of COVID, have been meeting on Zoom, so that's good. Social distancing.
And that is interesting to me, though. I mean, I hate to say it because we're talking about the legitimacy of this and being all real, but that's where I call bullshit right away. Look, if you can't like put some kind of mumbo jumbo spell to push the COVID away while your coven can meet together, then just quit. Just stop while you're ahead.
They don't want to be asymptomatic, Scott. You never know. Maybe it just made them be asymptomatic. You don't know.
Yeah. Well,
what if someone had a bad giant's toe or an eye of newt and it didn't work quite right?
Look, here's what I'm going to do.
You don't want an inexperienced witch ruining it for everyone.
I'm going to pull my negative penis out of your butt so you can continue with the sunshine and rainbows, Bobby, that we all love.
So yeah, overall, witches, I think, are a good thing.
I do too.
Yeah, get in there, practice your natural stuff. Anything we can learn from herbs, and the natural science, verbology, and how witches can throw together some ingredients and try to heal it, even if it's a placebo effect that it has on the people. It does not matter if it works, right? So
it doesn't matter if it doesn't hurt, then it's fine, right? It's all fine and dandy. I think there's a lot of holistic medicine right now does fabulous things that would be considered straight up evil witchcraft back in the 1700s. So yeah.
Oh yeah. What would Matthew Hopkins have thought if he had walked in and you or I was laid out on a table getting acupuncture done? Oh man, we would have been like just set on fire right away.
And honestly, that's Eastern religion witchcraft, so to speak.
Right?
They would call them holy men, right, for like Buddhists or Hindu monks and everything. And we didn't touch on it much too, but some of the medicine doctors, shaman, and stuff like that are the most respected people in the tribe in South American, Central American, and African countries too. So.
Right. In the indigenous rest of the world that no one had really embarked on at that time period, again, there were practicing witches that were called different names that were the old way, still the most respected people in their society, which is, in Europe at the time with the push of Christianity, it was a push towards making the men of the cloth the most respected people in society, right? Or the men in power, right?
Ooh, yeah.
I did think it was interesting that Matthew Hopkins found a priest that the town hated because he was basically an old codger, and called him a witch, and he tortured this old man for like 4 months until he finally just admitted to making, to practicing witchcraft and causing like boats to sink and crops to poison people and whatever. Even though, he never admitted to making a deal with the devil, he obviously wanted his torture to end. So
There's that.
again, this goes to modern day. This is why the CIA is just like, well, torturing. I mean, it kind of works, but there comes a point in time where the information that you get is no longer good because you've like tortured this man to the point where he'll say fucking anything.
Yeah, you've beat the truth out of him, literally. It's like, you know what I mean? You get to a certain point where what you're getting is only what you want to hear because you won't take anything else as fact. And yeah, that's the common theme there, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's like being involved in politics in America or being married.
He said it, Jess. He said it.
Whatever you say is right. I don't even care anymore.
Look, I just want to play GTA. All right, just whatever.
This is how you stay happily married, kids. Just so you know, she's always right. She's just gonna be, and that's that.
Great. And I'm going to stop you there because I'm going to do something unprecedented. But I'm going to go grab a beer.
You go grab a beer. I'm going to move us off of this topic.
Good. And we're going to get started on something else. And this is perfect for us to be able to chop it out, slice it up.
Get in there. So while he goes and grabs a beer, witchcraft is fun. It's Halloween. Everyone needs to, kind of understand where people are coming from. But we are out of time, so we need to move on past the witchcraft thing. It was super fun to talk about, but we want to wrap up our Halloween 3-week series of horror, and we want to start talking about our favorite horror films. So there's so many good ones, and I know we've talked about our favorite slasher characters. And I don't think we've ever really hit on just kind of our general, what is our spookiest horror films in general? What do we love to watch, or necessarily what do we avoid watching because it's so creepy, right? And there's a few of them out there. I know that for me personally, there's several that I've kind of grown up with because I've been introduced to horror films much too early, according to the common lore of when kids should be introduced to horror films, because I do have an older brother and then an older sister. So I wasn't going to be the reason that they weren't able to watch Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street. So at like 5 years old, I'm watching Johnny Depp get trapped in his waterbed. so it's I have a little bit of history with horror films. I grew up with them. I watched them at a very early age. The hypocrite, as far as my son would probably say, is that he's older than I was when I watched most of my horror films. But I've been trying to introduce him to all of the good ones. And trying to keep him from watching some of the more gruesome or sexual films until he's a little bit older. But even though I probably saw them when I was like 10, but no one's parents knew the better at that point, because
100%. Times were different.
so just introducing our horror films.
Of course, I understand that. I was here the whole time.
Yeah, of course. So I love how you made another bloody beer. Good for you.
Well, I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do it right. But if I'm gonna take,
you're just like Bobble bullshit for a while. He's got it.
100%. Plus the movie magic, we can handle it either way. But yeah, I was like, you know what? I need it because this was really good. When you get to the bottom of it, you're like, ooh, there's the vodka. Even if I did stir mine up, my first one, I was like, there it is. It leaves you with some balls.
They're really good for me too. So just kind of explaining the list, because we've done slasher characters, iconic slashers. We've never really listed our horror films in general. So when I was looking at the list of horror films, I really wanted to take it back as to when I saw these films. Maybe not the first time, but just the first few times, how it made me feel. So I don't really have a favorite because I just love the genre so much. I just don't think I have one that stands up that far above the rest.
Bob, quit sucking this genre's dick already.
I do gotta say that The Shining is very, very good for me. right? It's got everything. It's got personal psychotic, murderous rage, right, on a human to human level that is scary. But it's also got the ghost lore, right, and the possessions and the little girls in the hall, and it's got everything that you would want in a movie.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Of course, anytime.
I told you before that we were probably going to be on the same page about this one. So
You like The Shining too?
when we were talking pre-show, I was like, that motherfucker's going to say The Shining, and I was going to say The Shining, and that's okay. It's okay to agree, Bub. I'll let you continue because you were in mid nut, and I don't want to have you try to shut
I don't want like horror film blue balls, so I appreciate that the effort. So The Shining, I think for me, really touches base and all that. And in fact, because of The Shining, when I saw 1408, that really kind of it got a piece of me, because I was just like, oh, it's got a special place for me. But 1408 definitely doesn't make my top 10, but it's a great movie. Another one that was really close up there, and maybe because I'm Texas born and grew up in Dallas, but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original from 73 or 74.
I don't know if the kids remember, but this is my favorite slasher film, is the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If you go back to episode 7 or 8. So anyways, I just wanted to.
It's so good. And when you watch the original, just the B of it all, because there was no budget for this film, right? Just so the B of it all, and just kind of how it's all almost filmed on like a handy cam, you know what I mean? And just the actors were all green. There was no one famous in it. So just the terror portrayed, and how just like getting yourself involved in a difficult spot with a psycho, with like nowhere to go, and watching your friends just get picked off. Like it was just so terrifying on a relatable level. Like you could find yourself in that spot. And these were humans, these were people. Like you look at Friday the 13th, and this guy's basically a deity, right? You look at a Nightmare on Elm Street, and Freddy's like a god type being, right?
Same thing with Michael Myers. Yeah, he's kind of the same version as like Jason,
Yeah, you
100%.
have all these guys. They're not real people. Hellraiser, a demon, not real people. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre, oh, that guy was real. He was running after. He had like other victims on his face. Like he was after you, right? And how terrifying that would be to be broke down in the middle of nowhere and have nowhere to go. So that was kind of my top 2 when I really scoured it down, and how each one of them made me feel, and how terrifying. Even to this day, when I watch The Shining, it's shut the fuck up. The Shining is on.
Oh, dude, when the blood starts pouring out of the elevator in the hallway or whatever, it's like everybody needs to shut up for a minute, because I still get goosebumps watching that. Or when the girls are in the hallway and they shows like or when he goes into room 103 or what have you, right, or whatever. Is it 203? I don't, when he goes in and the chick's in the bathtub or whatever, comes out the lady.
Oh man, that's so scary.
Ooh, that one's gut wrenching.
And just watching him like develop the psychosis, and watching the hotel take him while he's having his conversations with the bartender that doesn't exist.
That doesn't exist. Or that does, and he's a ghost, right? And he's now he's slowly becoming one of them.
Or a ghost, either are terrifying.
No, I think, and I have to say that you hit the nail on the head there, because when we were talking earlier, I was reflecting, thinking about what movie always got me, in the sense that what encompass not just the scariest movie, right? Not the most gory, not the most fucking shock value or whatever you want to say. Good for you, sir. Get right in there. But the movie that makes you feel kind of the best, you know what I mean? In this sense, because it's not a bad feeling. It's a very frightening, somewhat sickening, weird kind of start. But I think that's the cool thing about a good horror movie, a good scary, a good dark movie in general, is it's a great feeling when you watch it. But it also tickles your what the fuck shitting yourself kind of synopsis as well. So yeah, I gotta agree that one of the best, and one that I'll love all time, is The Shining. I hate to double up on that, but I can't get away from it.
Don't be ashamed.
I'm not going to be ashamed. I will say, if we're looking at like kind of scariest horror movies, and staying with that though, I had mentioned it before, just because I think it's worth throwing out there. It's not one of my top 1 or 2, but it's in the top 3, if that makes sense. But I do have to give props to The Exorcist. I just got to do it. It was kind of the movie that broke the mold for American Christian society.
That's
You
a
know what
lot
I
of
mean?
people's one, man.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And the reason why I just can't say it's my number one is because it came out in like what 1973. You know what I mean? So the reason why I say that is I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It came out a year later. I wasn't alive then either. So they're like, "What are you fucking talking about, Scott?" But what I'm saying is if I was there and I was a young kid or in my teens or even 20s at this time period, this movie scared people so much that it was the first time in history where there was like people that were needing therapists and that were lined up outside of the theater to help you like kind of cope with what you just saw, and people running to church because they wanted to repent because yeah, it was one of those things where it was one of those envelope pushers where people today watching horror movies would be like, really cheesy. The budget was low. It was old school. Yeah, I get it. It's kind of whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it was one of those ground shaking movies in the horror genre. You know what I mean? It really, 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 really pushed the envelope, and it got under American skin in the sense that it was anti-God. So I thought that has to be mentioned. But if I take it besides The Shining, another one for me, bro, and I love Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but the original 1984 Children of the Corn. Children of the Corn is a creepy, creepy fucking movie. We talked about it earlier. There's something about kids.
It's one of Stephen King's best.
Yeah,
his best horror movie.
I think it may be his best horror movie. Maybe not his best story and encompassing, but I think for some reason, and I think it has to do with the dated filming of the early 80s, kids being evil, crazy redheads, whatever it is. But there's something eerie, just very, very unsettling about the idea of what's going on in Children of the Corn, especially when you watch it as an adult. I'll tell you that. When I watched it as a kid, it freaked me out for another reason, because I thought I could end up being sucked in and being part of this like child satanic cult. When you watch it as an adult, you're like, fuck, they're going to kill me. Like out the gate, I'm done. And I'm not even going to know it because they're kids. So
kids aren't scary, but a couple dozen of them with like scythes and shit are.
Yeah, a couple dozen of them that look like pilgrims with fucking big ass fucking farm tools. Yeah.
Why do they all have overalls on? It's fucking weird.
Because I think they originally died like hundreds of years ago, right? So, but yeah, I think that takes the cake. Now, with all this being said, I told you I was going to throw you a little loop here, because what's my favorite Halloween movie? And right now people are saying, Scott, that wasn't the fucking question. That's not what we're reviewing. Yeah, I know. But I have
an open forum, please.
But I have to say, my favorite horror movie, hands down, that I have to watch every year, is also in turn my favorite movie of all time. And it is.
I can guess. Can I guess? Let me guess. I'm going to guess The Crow.
You would be correct, sir. You would be correct.
I knew it.
Not only does it take place on Halloween night when he gets married, and I know it's not legitimately, definitely not the scariest movie, but if it's not one of the best goddamn stories and best acting jobs, and I will say this with confidence, the best goddamn musical soundtrack for a movie of all goddamn time, woo! That's it for me, baby. That's it for me.
R.I.P. BL. R.I.P.
And his dad.
and his dad. But Brandon Lee hit more home for us because, he was alive when we were.
Sure.
No, that's perfectly acceptable to put that up on your Halloween movie list, even though it may not be the horror movie list. I do have a couple of honorable mentions for the horror movie list.
Oh, come on, baby. Bring it.
I know it's probably going to be blasphemous and people will probably make fun of me. But again, when I evaluated the horror movies, I wanted to evaluate how I felt when I saw them. So there was a couple of movies that really just twisted my gut when I saw them, right? And one of them was the Blair Witch Project.
You know what?
So,
I'm glad you said that. I'm just going to say that right now, and I'm going to tell you why very quickly so you can get back to it.
Speaking of witches.
Yeah, but the reason why is I saw that in the theaters in the late 90s.
Me too.
Yeah, before there was a lot of shit when it was brand new, and when I saw it, I had no fucking clue it was fake. Like there was that in my mind. So that's why that movie freaked me out so bad. Because
in fact, the marketing was pushing that it was real. They weren't saying it was real, but they weren't saying that it was a movie. They were trying to market it as if they actually found these. And if I'm correct, they even spun up websites to go along with this so that people would search it and think it was real. Because when this shit hit the theaters, the common knowledge at the time was this was a fucking real
documentary,
real,
like
yeah, it was a
like
yes.
we literally I remember that, and I think that's the glory of the not the age of the internet or whatever, because it was right before it was huge. But yeah, I remember watching that with my brother and my aunt and leaving the theater, and honestly I went home and something happened and I got freaked the fuck out, and I was starting to look somewhere. I was like, whoa dude, I am tripped out. But then honestly, like I think within a month after that, it was revealed that it was fake, and that there was like this much of a budget, and it was all low budget. And then everything, the facade about it, everything just melted away. You know, the
Yeah, but
whole.
everyone had already seen it at
Yeah,
that point
exactly.
and
Yeah,
paid their money. That movie made so much money.
it was
It was
actually
ridiculous.
probably one of the smartest marketing jobs of a movie ever done, because it literally turned something in that would be laughable, and to the point where I would have walked out of the theater. Honestly, if I would have known it was fake, I probably would have walked out of the theater like near the end. I'd be like, okay, they're shaking around the camera way too much. But thinking that was potentially real fucked with my head. I got
It
to give
fucked
you
with
that.
all of our heads, dude. We were all there. We all saw it, and it was crazy.
Now,
Another one that I'd like to give an honorable mention to, the original fucking Poltergeist.
we watched that. We watched that a couple weeks ago with Elizabeth. Actually, she loved it.
Great movie. Who didn't like know that old lady's squeaky shoes? Like forever, right? Just why are your shoes squeaking, old lady? Right. So the original Poltergeist, of course, when I first saw that movie, I was like 7 years old. So it freaked me the fuck out. I was afraid of static on my TV at all times.
Oh, I didn't want to see. I didn't want to see the snow anymore on the TV. Fuck that.
And I was hooking up an Atari with like the screw still in the back of the TV at the time. Yeah, kids, I'm that old.
Mm-hmm. Good job.
I don't know why I say kids. Our Stiffies are all old too. So
well, we're probably twice the age of some of them, but that's okay. Not many of them. Not many of them at all. Well, that's good. I like where you went there, man. I would say.
What are your honorable mentions, buddy?
I was just gonna say, dude, if I'm gonna really go with it, dude, we mentioned it before. An honorable mention for me, I'm gonna go old school again a little bit here on this one, and say the original, which I believe is from the very early '60s, is the original Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah,
I think
fantastic film. Bravo. Yep.
Scared the shit out of me, dude. And I was like, whoa, what is going on? These people are just kind of like going to visit a grave at the beginning of the movie, and then all of a sudden this guy's like stumbling around trying to eat him, and then like, you know, then it's pandemonium. It's just, but that I think that created an entire sect of horror movies for, you know,
that film spawned billions of dollars of fucking revenue. I mean, it gave us The Walking Dead. I mean, it gave us everything.
Well, the original Dawn of the Dead too was not too long after that came out, and that's been redone a few times. And then, of course, Dawn of the Dead, Light of the Living Dead. That's all the premise and basis of, you know, The Walking Dead and other things like that. And there's been millions of zombies things, and you know, honestly, they're not pumping a dry well yet. I think people are fascinated with that because it kind of combines like the post-apocalyptic, you know, like the viral elliptic, you know, kind of thing, dude, and then horror at the same time.
Yeah.
You know,
how many people are looking at the COVID vaccine right now and be like, yeah, go ahead, rush that vaccine. You'll see what happens.
Yeah, like we talked about, we're not taking that shit first. We're gonna wait. We're gonna wait and look and observe for a while.
I'm gonna wait and buy ammo. And then when it's all good, I'll get it.
So that's definitely one right there. But honestly, I'm gonna, and we talked about it earlier, I'm gonna have to go with a remake here. But the original to me is always gonna be a huge in my heart too. But I'm gonna go with Evil Dead. And I know a lot of people think that the original's kind of, you know, very comical, kind of, they did the second one that's tongue in cheek and stuff, but the remake that they did in 2013 of Evil Dead was what Sam Raimi wanted to do, you know, in 1980, but just didn't have the budget or the actors or whatever it was.
Didn't they make a series?
Ash versus Evil Dead. Yeah, they did do that on Stars. Great series. More a little bit comical, still very good. The whole basis of it was the story of Evil Dead, though, which is great. Again, that's a good and evil thing, to like the degree of you doing necromancy, you know what I mean, and raising the dead and shit like that, which is a big thing for witches. But I thought that was just a fantastic one, is the one they did in 2013. I saw that one in the theaters too, when the girl's like in the bathroom, like cutting her mouth open with the broken piece of glass, and then like turns around and you can see her do it and just see like the lost dead look in her eyes. You're like, wow, this is scary shit. So I'm gonna go with that, dude. You know, there's a lot on here, but those ring really true to me.
So we mentioned that like kind of 2000 was kind of the turning point where less awesomeness came out.
I think so.
There was there was a another film that was kind of like Blair Witch when it first came out. Do you remember when the first Paranormal Activity came out?
I do, and I'm gonna go ahead and just say this right now. I'm gonna clear it up for the Stiffies right now. I'm not a fan. I wasn't a fan. I just wasn't a fan. I did watch it. I believe I even saw it in the theaters. But yeah, it's one of those things where how many did they make? Like 5, 6 of
Oh
those.
yeah, only the
They
first one was really the one to watch.
but yeah, it was a little freaky, but I think it was because they played me once, they fooled me once with Blair Witch Project, and I couldn't be fooled again, honestly. Because you're right, it was somewhat similar. It was a revamped, different kind of idea. It was good, but I just knew it was fake, and it didn't have that same hook because of that. I think it's maybe because of the timing. If it would have came out in the late '90s too, you know what I mean?
Yeah, if it was a little bit sooner, but then again, webcams weren't like good enough to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, this is true.
We had to wait on technology to improve. But what a fun show. I'm gonna miss these shows. We're gonna have to move on to like politics and Thanksgiving and
And being gay, which again has nothing to do with the other three things. But you're right. This was really, I was just thinking about it too. Um, this is probably the most fun I've had doing a show, is this show right here, and this little small Halloween series that we did. Because honestly, I think when it really just rings true and tickles your personality, that's when things really get fun. And that's where we're at right now, Bob. So
yeah,
good
and
for
I
good
feel
for
like we
us.
went way over our normal time that we try to keep it at, but we these things had to get out. You guys needed to hear it. This is our Halloween show. Literally, it's on Halloween, but we've been like this all month. We get giddy around Halloween. It's super fun. We like to scare ourselves. We like to scare the kids. We like to get everyone hyped for this because this is like the coolest month of the year. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. Snow and presents. Christmas is just fucking expensive, but
Yeah,
fucking Halloween
this
is
is true.
amazing,
That's
right?
right.
It's
I love
always
that.
fun to like get that tingle in your balls when you get scared. That's awesome.
I love it.
So I
I love it.
hope that you Steffies enjoy Halloween as much as we do. Uh, we love it, obviously. I'm sad to see it go, but we will see you next year with the Halloween stuff coming October. We'll be doing this every year. That's just how we roll. We love Halloween. But on that, I mean, I don't really have anything else to add. Just tell your friends, grow the audience. It's time to blow this motherfucker up.
Yeah, yeah, dog. Get in there. Let's go. Share this shit. Listen to this shit. Tell your friends. Tell your mom. Tell your mom's mom. Tell your mom's sister, and tell her not to be such a slut anymore. Honestly, guys, like Bob said, let's get out there. Let's pump this show up. I know there's plenty of people that listen to this shit religiously, just like me and Bob do, right? I can't be the only person that does this. I hope.
Yeah, I'm not half the listens. I really, in fact, I have a confession. I didn't even watch last week's show.
Oh, that's okay.
I know I was there, so but
You remember it. You remember it.
I do
Well,
remember.
yeah,
Go ahead.
it's okay. No, I was just gonna say, well, it's okay. Shit, you're an asshole.
I am. But that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as we did. Thank you, Scott, for sharing your ghost story. That was fucking gripping.
You're
So
welcome,
thank
sir.
you. That was amazing.
You're welcome.
We will be here the same time next week. I had a blast today, and I'm sad that Halloween's going to end today. But
But Bob, don't be sad. It's okay. We're going to enjoy Halloween. Everybody's going to enjoy Halloween. And then people can tell us about their awesome Halloween stories and how they scared the shit out of some little kid with asthma and made him have to go to the hospital or something really fun like that. So, guys, remember, it's always going to be fun. Halloween's always there, bro. It's just, I know it's a time of year, but it's more of a state of mind, man. You know what I mean? So let's stay in that mindset. Let's go do some spooky, fun shit, have some fun with the fam, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
all right, guys, we love you. See ya.
Peace.